Welcome to the Darkstream. Vox Day, voxday.blogspot.com, and a happy Thanksgiving to one and all. I think we have a lot to be thankful for this year. Everything hasn't necessarily gone the way that we would have liked it to. The world is still a dangerous place. It's still a silent and fallen planet. But we do have a lot to be thankful for. And, I am very thankful for President Trump. Even though he hasn't done everything that he said he would do, even though he hasn't done everything that we hoped he would do, he has significantly outperformed the low end of our expectations. I mean, you can't deny that he is already easily the greatest president of the 20th and 21st centuries so far. I'm also thankful for the burn unit. I haven't talked about Infogalactic very much because I'm not actively working on it. I'm not part of the team that is actively working on it. They already have my design. They're making it work. They're making it happen. But, just today, I was on Infogalactic and I was updating my verified page. And I noticed that Alex Jones now has a verified page. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be amazing if all of the conservative and right of center celebrities and media figures and so forth who complain about the way that Wikipedia lies about them, wouldn't it be great if they just came over and set the record straight on their own Infogalactic verified page? Because if you look at the difference between the Infogalactic verified page about me and the Wikipedia page about me, it's almost ludicrous how much more useful, informative, and accurate my verified page is. That's the page that only I can touch. Well, only me and the top level administrators at Infogalactic. But it's really useful to be able to have your own perspective out there. You don't have to take it seriously. You can believe in Wikipedia if you want to. I think they're missing all of my comics, several of my books. It's and if you think about it, that's true, almost certainly, of every single individual who is to the right of center. And so, even though we're just beginning to make headway, the staunch loyalty of the burn unit to that project, making it happen, making it work, keeping the server lights on, is something I'm very, very thankful for. I'm thankful that for all that they don't like me very much, I'm thankful that I'm still able to use YouTube. I don't know how much longer that'll last. Could be a day, could be indefinite. It's not going to stop the Darkstream, regardless. But it's nice to be able to utilize these great streaming technologies while we have access to them. And I'm thankful for my new acquaintance with the Big Bear. I was just listening to his most recent stream talking about Celine Dion. I've never seen Titanic, so I was really cracking up when he showed the old clip of his joke about the relationship between somebody named Rose, who I assume must be Kate Winslet, and her husband. But it was really funny. And what I thought was really interesting and really great, excuse me, there'll be more, was the way that he was calling out Celine Dion for the evil satanic clothing line that she's endorsing, that she's doing ads for. You know, the cultural war is a spiritual war. That's what a lot of people don't want to believe yet. A lot of people don't want to accept it yet. But that's the case. Somebody said, Big Bear denounced nationalism on Joe Rogan's podcast. Look, a lot of people are just waking up. You know, you need to be patient with the civic nationalists because they have not thought through the whole logic of their position. And they have been, steeped in the civic nationalist propaganda almost from birth. I know because I was. And I don't think it would have been as easy for me to pull myself out of it if I hadn't spent the vast majority of my adult life living in other countries. And so, I don't fault civic nationalists like Donald Trump. I don't fault civic nationalists like Mike Cernovich. I'm not going to criticize them, even though I believe that they are incorrect about those positions, because I know, just from the way that they talk about it, that they do not realize how civic nationalism is globalism light. And it's interesting. It's interesting to see how people deal with these things. I mean, it's very difficult. When you are a normal, patriotic Republican, if you're I'm proud to be I'm proud to be an American because at least I know I'm free, and I'll stand up next to you, and it's all very right-wing kumbaya. But at the end of the day, it's just as nonsensical as the left-wing actual kumbaya. Have you been seeing people post things about the caravan in light of Thanksgiving? I have not seen a single thing like that. You need to keep in mind that I'm not on social media. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. I don't really pay much attention to the zeitgeist. Let's see. Stefan said his trip to Poland gave him a new perspective on nationalism. Oh, I rather expect it would. The Poles are very, very strong and proud nationalists. If you want to see something inspiring, watch that Sabaton video of them playing Warsaw in Poland. And so thoughts on that person you've never heard about? Yeah. Anyhow, but you need to realize that we're in a cultural war, and a lot of us recognize that. But what is becoming ever more clear is that we are also in a spiritual war. And that's why I think that you're seeing that people like Owen, that people like Milo, that people like me are less compromising and less flexible on some of this stuff than people that are people like Stefan, people like Mike, people who are less religious. And so, because if you're not religious, if you're not attuned to the spiritual aspects, regardless of how well you keep to the precepts of your faith, and before you jump in and start trying to get on Milo or something, we all have our sins, we all have our issues, and so the more that you are in tune with it, the more that you're aware of it, the deeper you can understand what's actually going on. Owen was absolutely right to be deeply troubled by the fact that they had little kids wearing essentially the same type of animal head masks and so forth that you saw the Rothschilds wearing at elite parties in the 1970s. There's definitely a overt evil symbolism that is being directed at the children and for which the children are being used. It's not an accident. And so, and when you look at the deep, deep corruption of the various Christian organizations, whether it's the aid organizations, the aid organizations are even more converged and even more corrupted than the churches themselves. And the churches themselves, the Vatican, the Anglican and the Episcopalian churches, they are deeply, deeply converged. But again, we have a lot to be thankful for because we are beginning to see it. Our eyes are beginning to be open to it. It's not like this hasn't been happening all along. And in fact, it is so obvious to everyone that even evil people like Hillary Clinton are telling their peers, whoa, slow down. You're going too fast. You're losing them. You're going to bring about a revolution. Now, she didn't actually come out and say that, but that's what she's worried about. That's what they're all worried about. They're all terrified of it. Yeah, the unicorn symbolism is occultic. There's no question. Let's see. Do you get the feeling that there are genuine satanic cults that have been living among us for generations and are now increasingly coming out of the shadows? Yes, certainly. They started to come out in the 60s, and now they're doing it again. These things go back, in some cases, probably centuries. How much occult symbolism in pop culture is real and how much of it is trolling? Well, you have to keep in mind that there's no distinction between the real and the trolling. There's something about evil, and I've even heard people theorize that there is a spiritual law to that regard, that evil has to declare its intentions, that they that they're like, if you think about the story of Job, remember one of the interesting aspects about that is Satan says, let me do whatever I want, and God says, okay, but you can't kill him. And that tends to indicate that there are some limitations on it, and there do appear to be some limitations on it. And so, it's like that whole vampires have to be invited in first. One of the things that was interesting about Larry Correa's books is the way that the entire welcome mat industry is essentially the doing of vampires to make sure that they have an excuse to get into as many houses as possible. And so, revelation of the method. And so, I think that that's why you need to pay attention to the trolling. That's why you have to pay attention to the jokes. You have to pay attention to all of the sarcasm. And you have to watch your tongue. And so, I always take those sorts of things seriously. I never play along with those things. And that's why, of course, they want you to, hang on, I got to get rid of this guy. There we go. They want you to believe that it's not real. Oh, it's all just a joke. Ha ha ha. So funny. And then obviously down the road, once you realize that you've gotten in too deep, then they let you know, oh yeah, by the way, it's actually real. So, and the other thing is, why are they always pretending to be evil? Why is that always so much funnier? Why is it so funny to pretend to be doing these terrible things and so forth? It's never funny to be good. It's never funny to treat people well. And so, I think that the more that I see people engaging in that kind of symbolism, the more that I see people engaging into those jokes and so forth, the more that I'm pretty confident that they're not joking, not entirely. So anyhow, it's, like I said, if it is a spiritual war, then it behooves us to make sure that we are, and in this sense, Jordan Peterson is actually right. We do need to clean our room. We do need to clean our house. We do need to get our mind and our spirit in order. So anyhow, my advice is to take this stuff seriously. And for posterity says, it's ironic that so many of the people that they smear as racist, Nazis, bigots, and full of hate aren't actually any of that and are often the nicest people. Well, that's much more worrisome because those people are projecting. When they are talking about how all their enemies are so full of hate, they're actually talking about themselves. They just don't realize it. But we should. And be aware that that's the situation. I mean, what puzzles me, I understand it psychologically. But most of these people, I would think, are intelligent enough to understand that you cannot appease these people. You should not appease these people. You should not be cucking and submitting and cringing before them. Why would you? If you understand that they are evil and that they seek to do evil, why are you attempting to work out a rapprochement with them. It makes no sense. Vox, when are you signing with CAA? Don't lie, you like apple cider. I do like apple cider. It doesn't keep me from sleeping. I mean, I have to admit, I find that whole thing ridiculous in the first place. I mean, I can have an espresso and go to bed, half an hour later and go to sleep no trouble. So, how useful is Freud in your opinion? Not at all. It's actually of negative utility. Yes, I did see that JF did a review of Jordanetics. That was very kind. Does Christianity produce a slave mentality in its adherents? No, it does not. Good people tend to confuse the world for themselves. That's true. I mean, but everybody tends to engage in projection. Everybody. One of the criticisms and legitimate criticisms of my writing that a friend directed at me was that all of my characters are highly intelligent. And he was saying this, actually, initially, he meant it in a positive way. He said, I really enjoy reading your characters. They're all so intelligent. And I realized that's not what I want. That's not what I'm trying to do. I should have a broader range of characters. But, it's a challenge to, just as it's very difficult for a person of average intelligence to write a highly intelligent character, it can be difficult for a highly intelligent person to write a character of average intelligence convincingly. I mean, yes, you can just declare it, but to actually get the thought processes down and so forth is challenging. What's your favorite programming language? I don't have one. I think someone overlooked a lot of the time was Edward Bernays. That you're right. He was pretty sinister, and modern PR and advertising that is literally his conversion of propaganda techniques to the mass market. You hear a lot about Marshall McLuhan, but you hear very little about him. Why was Italy the most advanced during the Renaissance, but not during later years? That's a good question. I don't know. I've always been curious about that, but I've never really looked into it in depth. Do you like apologetics? Not particularly. Is it effective? Not so much, I don't think. I'm waiting for Peterson to start talking about reptilians and shapeshifters. Oh, here we go. Thoughts on Tai Lopez? I have never heard of him. I have no thoughts on him. What do you think of Dungeons and Dragons? Occultism? Well, that was the big scare. No, I don't think so, because I know, I actually knew Dave Arneson, had the chance to meet him and talk to him several times. It may have been turned into that by other people later, but neither he nor Gary Gygax were involved in any of that sort of stuff. Newsweek has a new article on the increasing popularity of witchcraft. Well, I'm not at all surprised. It's inevitable. The spiritual vacuum has to be filled. The spiritual vacuum will be filled. And it's either going to be filled by Christianity or it's going to be filled by evil. Those are the two choices. Do you have any specific criticisms of Steven Pinker? And if so, would you debate him? They're not my criticisms, but I'm very aware of the criticisms of Steven Pinker that a lot of other people have directed at him. I would not debate him, no. Thank you for your time. Thank you for yours. Have you looked at Peterson's self-authoring program? No, but I have read the study that proved that it was worthless and does not achieve what he claims. Do you think it is nefarious? I don't know. I haven't looked at it. It would not surprise me if it was. Early D&D was fantasy skirmish gaming for actuaries. Exactly. Are we going to see witch burnings? Eventually. Did you eat turkey or lasagna tonight? We had turkey. We do all the we do it American style. Turkey, pumpkin pie, pecan pie, mashed potatoes, cranberries, you name it. It's always great. Why are drag queens reading books to kids in libraries? Because the evil elite want to corrupt the children at as early an age as possible. Is Peterson's lack of courage and inability to take a clear stand his biggest problem? No. Your book picks up quite well towards the end, by the way. Good. It's actually it's kind of funny because it has what would normally pass for the padding at the front. The various comments and stuff, but those were actually important and they serve a purpose because it demonstrates how little Peterson's defenders know about what Peterson is doing. And it also demonstrates what a cultish mentality they have. Happy Thanksgiving. Just read Mere Christianity at your recommendation. As Jesse Lee Peterson would say, it's amazing. It is indeed. Who is your favorite Vikings player of all time? Well, my favorite player when he was playing was Todd Scott when we had the season tickets. He was a big hitting safety, the duck walk. But I mean, Fran Tarkenton was definitely my all-time favorite. The way he would scramble around and this 30-second scramble and then throw a 4-yard completion. It was hilarious. Do you think that the United States will eventually become more Christian? I don't know. I hope so. But I just do not know. Irrational Atheist is the funniest book. I enjoyed that. In fact, that was probably my favorite book review ever. Was someone described The Irrational Atheist as feeling like sitting down with a serial killer who's showing you his photo album of all his favorite crimes. I thought that was an amusing analogy. What's your next Audible release? Well, the next one for one of my books is going to be A Throne of Bones. I think we're more than 90% done. And it's going to be really long. It's like something like 40 hours. Is it true you believe in evolution theory? No, I do not. I'm a well-known skeptic of the theorem of evolution by natural selection, genetic drift, gene flow, and various other things. For a wide variety of reasons I'm not going to get into now. You can look it up on the blog. All you got to do is go to the left sidebar and click evolution, and you'll see all kinds of posts. My favorite Viking was John Randall. John Randall is awesome, the warrior. Not to mention his unique sack celebration. Can Owen narrate JORDANETICS? No, I expect he's a bit too busy. In fact, that's what I'm working on right now. We're cleaning up the typos, cleaning up some of the, shall we say, grammatical infelicities and so forth. We want to get that all cleaned up before we go to print. We will definitely, just so you know, for the Jordan Peterson fan in your family, JORDANETICS will be available in paperback in plenty of time for Christmas. Can you elaborate why Muslims are unlikely to take over the West? because the more, I mean, the resistance is growing. The nationalism is growing. Do you think resort casinos are bad for America's economic? I don't think it's that big a deal either way. Vox, have you talked to Taleb? Ever worked on having a discussion with him? We engaged, or we sent a few direct messages back and forth about, I don't know, 18 months ago, back when I was still on Twitter. Haven't talked to him or heard from him since. I'm guessing he didn't think too much of SJWs Always Lie, because he did say that he was reading it, and then that was the last I ever heard. So if he didn't like it, at least he was gracious enough to not say anything about it. Let's see. In the Yahoo article about the Christian proselytizer being killed by the Indian tribe savages, the comment section is filled with anti-Christian sentiment. It's bizarre. Well, I think it's expected. I mean, these people have no decency. They have no, no shame, and they hate Christianity and all that is good. So, I mean, you have to understand, Tolkien came up with his idea of these elven blades that the mere light of them burn the orcs. That idea, he came up with that idea from somewhere. And what it is people who are given over to evil are actually psychically scarred by that which is good. You know, the whole idea of vampires reacting to crosses and silver and so forth is a metaphor for the way that people who are given over to evil react to Christianity and Christians. You know, they can't stand it. It literally, you know, freaks them out and makes them uncomfortable in the same way that, you know, creepy sex perverts trigger our radar. What do you think is the best book to get a young teen into reading as a gift? The Hobbit or Ender's Game were my picks. I would actually pick something like Tunnel in the Sky by Robert Heinlein. I think the Heinlein juveniles are great. We have actually 3 books that we wrote or published specifically for that purpose. Look at Mutiny in Space, Alien Game, and Young Man's War. You know, great books, and you know, really a good way to get people into reading. Another way, strange as it sounds, is take a look at some of the alt hero comics and the Quantum Mortis comics. You know, we're not writing them at a low level. We're not dumbing them down. And if people enjoy that they're naturally going to migrate into the novels and so forth. Justin's looking for trouble. I loaned my digital copy of Jordanetics to a JP Boomer fanboy. I can't wait to see his reaction after Thanksgiving break. Yeah. That should be fun. Would you be willing to host your own show on a Christian network? I don't know. I'd be open to the possibility. I don't really know what I would do in terms of, you know, I don't think I could do what Alex Jones or Rush Limbaugh do and just sit there and talk about, you know, current events for hours. Fox, how many private jets will it take for you to join a megachurch and preach? You even get your own 1-800 number. I don't want to do that, and I don't want that responsibility. Worked with a guy who almost spat anytime he mentioned Christianity or conservatives. I asked him what he believed in, and he says, "I believe in science." Yeah, sure you do. You know, I mean, these are people who are given over to evil. You know, there's not much they can do about it. Any Black Friday deals? Yeah, Crypto Fashion's got some that they're going to be that we're going to put up on the blog. Ree Peterson in the Michaela Rogan podcast, she talked about seeing demons in her brother. That and her illnesses could be connected to the occult, maybe. Quite possibly, especially when they're talking about there being 4 generations of depression in the family. I mean, there's clearly something wrong there. Exactly what, we don't know. But, given the fact that Peterson is clearly at least dabbling in the occult, it shouldn't be a surprise that his kids are showing some signs of that. Is all mental illness in Christians spiritual in nature? Well, I don't think so, because we know that some mental illnesses are caused by physical trauma and physical issues. So, I think that, I think it's always important not to blame everything on the devil and blame everything on evil when, sometimes, a car accident is just a car accident. In the new series of American Horror Story, the Antichrist is born, and it's the pagan witches that have to defeat him. Yeah, that seems likely. I mean, that, whoever produces that show is seriously messed up. I mean, he's like seriously involved in whatever it is. And it doesn't surprise me that, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Hollywood ever gets blown wide open, if it turns out that he's involved in something that makes Harvey Weinstein look innocent. Cernovich ridiculed me yesterday for worrying about 5G's effects. Okay. I don't know anything about 5G, and if there is something wrong with it, I'm sure we'll find out soon. Generational spirits really mess you up. Well, the thing is that even on a purely material level, the generations affect you. For example, people sometimes say, they talk about my dad and how, he was, really courageous to do what he did. Maybe even if they think that what he did was really unwise, they recognize his courage. Or they say, oh, it's really brave of you to do this or that. But the reality is that I was raised by my Marine Corps grandfather that you always run towards the people shooting at you. And that's the expectation. And the rules that Peterson talks about are so offensive to me on a deep and personal level that I can't even articulate it properly. The idea that we should not take pride in our identity, the idea that we should not be inspired by our fathers and our grandfathers and our forefathers, the idea that we're just what we are as we are, and that's all. The idea that we should leave people behind. It's so fundamentally wrong on every level that I find it difficult to even articulate how much I disagree with it. Ever thought of joining the Special Forces? Not once. I actually did enlist with the Marines, and the my best friend and I went in, and the day that Desert Shield started, we went to the local recruiter and signed up, and uh, he took one look at our academic backgrounds and our jobs, and literally ripped up the forms and said he couldn't, in good conscience, let us sign up because the war was going to be over before we even got to basic. My family is been tied to the Marines for quite some time. I couldn't have imagined ever joining any other service. Vox, who has challenged any arguments, positions that you feel the strongest rebuttals, or have you reconsidering any of your views? Ian Fletcher, free trade. I was a strong free trade advocate, and reading Free Trade Doesn't Work got me thinking about it. And then I started analyzing the actual arguments of both David Ricardo and Henry Hazlitt and Adam Smith, and I realized that Fletcher was correct. So, also, I want to show you this. This is something that Drudge was reporting on today, and this demonstrates very clearly why you can't give the left an inch. Why there is absolutely no point in attempting to negotiate with them, in attempting to reason with them. They look at this as an expression of racism. Why? Because Franklin is sitting on one side of the table, and there's 4 people on the other side. And because his chair is a lawn chair, and they're claiming that everyone else was sitting on table chairs, regular table chairs, which of course isn't even the case. The real issue is they hate peanuts. Charles Schulz was probably the greatest philosopher of the 20th century. And he was a Christian, and he had deep insight into the human condition, and that's why they hate him. That's why they want to get rid of Thanksgiving, the special. They want to get rid of the Christmas special. Especially they want to get rid of the Christmas special. And so I just want to remind you that even something that we loved in our innocence as children is something that they want to destroy. They want to destroy childhood. They want to destroy innocence. They want to destroy Christianity. They want to destroy America, and they want to destroy the West. You cannot reason with these people. You should not in any way seek their approval. You should not cower before them. You should not compromise with them. So, do you like Aristotle? Very much. Happy Thanksgiving, Liz. As Peterson continues to be exposed, his fans will just lose interest and drift away to other interests. They're going to anyhow, because there's nothing there. There's once they've cleaned their room and whatever, where are they going to go on to? You pumped to shred some globalist shills and doom eternal? Yeah, McInnes did cuck, but like Owen pointed out, we don't know exactly what's going on. It's entirely possible they said, look, you you disband it, and you quit, and we'll take it easy on everybody. They're probably lying, if they did say that, but it's entirely possible. Is there nothing to Peterson, or is there substantial evil? There is nothing to Peterson's superficial rules, but those superficial rules are there to conceal substantial evil. So, all right. Well, that's all I've got for tonight, but just a reminder, Jordanetics is out. If you haven't read it yet, check it out. I think you'll find it worthwhile. A happy Thanksgiving to all of you. And just a reminder, it's not a generic phrase. We are giving thanks to God the Father for the many gifts that he has given us. And so keep that in mind and don't hesitate to give thanks for the things for which you feel grateful. Have a good evening. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And I'll look forward to seeing you at the next Darkstream.